Hi, folks. After grading the fiction essays, I had a few like notes or like writing tips that I feel like we could all benefit from. So I wanted to bring that up. And I also wanted to show you, since this is the first formal essay that I have left feedback on through Brightspace, I want to show you how to access that feedback, since I know maybe some of you have never used Brightspace to access this kind of feedback before. So I wanted to show you those two things. And I can do both of those things through a sample essay that I've turned in. So I'm going to show you that now. Okay, so if you are given feedback on any assignment, you will typically get a notification up here on the right side where the little bell is, update alerts. As a student, you will probably get something that looks like this, fiction essay released, and it will give you information about feedback and the grade. So I have like turned in a sample student essay from one of my previous students to demonstrate how this looks. So if you are given feedback, this is the first screen that will come up. It will say feedback for whatever assignment, submission feedback. The submission feedback will be my overall general feedback on the essay. Then if you scroll down, you will see some inline feedback. So if you have inline feedback, it will be here towards the bottom down here. Almost all of the essays, in fact, I think all of the essays that I have for us this semester will also include rubrics. So I grade based on rubrics that I've like meticulously created over the years to make it easier for me to grade, but also easier for you to read the feedback easier. So I'm going to show you how to read the inline feedback and the rubric content. So if you click view inline feedback, it should bring up your essay in a like PDF form, kind of. It's through Brightspace still, so you're still in the Brightspace page Dropbox, but it will bring it up in the center of the screen, and you will likely see these little green boxes around your essay. I make them bright green so that you can see them pretty easily, but these little green boxes are comments that I have left on your essay. So for example, and I just made these really quickly, so they don't actually mean anything, but paragraphs need to be indented. These are little comments, kind of like comments I might leave on a Word document in a comment. These are typically small things about the essay that I feel like I can just comment on directly on the essay instead of overarching ideas that might need to be discussed more thoroughly in the rubric or in the feedback box. So paragraphs need to be indented. Here I say good incorporation of evidence, things like that. So maybe a compliment or like a punctuation error. Here is, let's see, yeah, here's me correcting some punctuation, me adding a word that's missing here. So if there's a spelling error, a punctuation error that I catch, I might correct that in a comment. Or if there's something about the essay itself that I feel like I need to comment on, that's just easier for me to drop a comment on the essay itself. That's when I will use inline feedback. Or if there's a place specifically in the essay where I feel like it would really benefit for me to know where I'm talking about, that's another place that I'll use inline feedback. So if I say, you know, in paragraph 3, you really need more evidence, instead of just saying that in the rubric, I can specifically tell you where in paragraph 3 I would put evidence if I were you. So that can help you as well. Let's go back to the feedback. If you click here, obviously this is your document. So I'm viewing it as a student right now, which means that it will look the way yours looks. So if you go to course tools and then grades, you will see a list of all your grades. Obviously, this will be likely more filled out than yours. Up top, you will see your final calculated grade. This is your average in the class as of now. It's in a percentage here for you. Obviously, if you only have one grade, then that will be the grade. But I can scroll down, and there's two things here: view inline feedback and view graded rubric. This is what you want to click on to view the rubric. I'll make it a little bit bigger. So here is how the rubric is set up. This bar here is what is set up in the pre-established rubric that I've created. So a level 4 essay is the highest you can get, and the 16.6 points is the highest amount of points you can get. So a level 4 thesis statement is argumentative, clear, focused, and mentions the work and the author. Okay. So if you got a level 3 one, that meant your thesis statement is argumentative, but it maybe lacks a little focus. And all of these levels here are outlined in the rubric itself. The criterion feedback below is my specific feedback on your essay. So this is the feedback that I left on the sample essay that I'm working with here. So I just said good thesis to leave a comment so that you could view it. Below the organization comes next. I said topic sentences. I didn't even make a real comment. But so in examples, I said strong examples. And if I was giving a level 4 on examples, they would need to be strong examples because it says specific examples from the text support the claims made and relate to the overall thesis. So the rubric not only helps you understand for future essays what I'm looking for when grading, but it gives you specific comments on your essay specifically as to how that part of your essay, so for example, the examples in your essay, the organization in your essay can be improved. In terms of explanation, maybe your explanation needs a bit of development, so I can comment that here. Your quotes might be well cited, and etc. I don't leave comments on every section of the rubric if the level explains itself. So for example, if I think you had correct MLA format throughout the paper, quotations are cited, name, title, and date exist there, I don't feel the need to comment on that really. I gave you a level 4. I don't feel the need to elaborate any further on my giving you of a level 4. Similarly, if I comment elsewhere, so if I comment on the essay itself or in the overall feedback, something, I don't feel the need to repeat it here in the rubric. I will never, I try not to bog you down with feedback that is repetitive. So I try to only put feedback that I feel like is useful to you here in the rubric and in the overall feedback. So I don't want you overwhelmed with the same comments over and over again. So I will not place the same comment in several places. So overall, your overall score will be down here and the percentage will be here. And again, you can view the inline feedback here as well if you weren't able to view it before. And that's how it should show up. This is an essay based on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein when I taught it in 1102. And this is a good sample fiction essay, which we're going to move now into some of those writing tips that I was telling you about that I think we all could benefit from, right? So if you have any questions about the rubric content or the inline feedback, you're still struggling to find it or view that feedback, please contact me and I can walk you through it a little bit more specifically, okay? All right. After looking at the fiction essays, I think you all did a great job. I really enjoyed reading your perspectives on the short stories that we read. Here are a few things that I think we all could benefit from a refresher on, because I think we've all probably learned this in 1101, but it's been at least a couple months, maybe probably more for all of us since we have been in an 1101 classroom, right? So I wanted to remind you of some things. Short stories and any short fiction or short form content. So short stories, essays, articles, poems, anything short form, all short form content, the titles of those things go in quotation marks. Everything else, long form, so a novel like Frankenstein here, film, video game, play, anything long form goes in italics. So here, Frankenstein is italicized. That is because it is a long form piece. It's a novel. Remember that short stories and novels are different. And then a short story title, again, goes in quotation marks. In terms of MLA formatting, the top left side of your first page needs to include your name, then my name, Professor Outler, English 1102, and then the date. The title of your essay needs to appear on the first line below the date, centered. And then your first paragraph starts right below that. all paragraphs in the essay need to be indented. The font needs to be Times New Roman size 12, and the whole essay, the whole paper, needs to be double spaced throughout. All the settings for your margins and stuff in Word are typically set to a default of 1 inches, so keep that the same. But if for some reason your margins are set to something different, make sure your margins are 1 inch. In terms of actual essay writing, one thing that I feel like I commented a lot is that I would love to see more evidence from the text. This is something that we're really going to need to practice, especially when we move to the poetry unit. The drama unit, remember, is a timed essay, so you will not be required to quote directly from the play because it will be, under a time limit, and you won't be able to flip through a 200-page play. But for the poetry unit, you will definitely be required to quote and cite directly from the poems. So please make sure that that is a skill that you are trying to hone as you are thinking about what you're going to write for the poetry unit. Here is an example of some well-incorporated evidence from the text that is a direct quote, okay? This paragraph, even if you haven't read Frankenstein, that's okay, you'll understand the context. This paragraph starts with, first and foremost, the creature notoriously evolves into the primary seeker of revenge, which several of you wrote about revenge in the Edgar Allan Poe story. He experiences his first bout of rage after being shot by a man in the woods following the creature's heroic saving of a woman drowning in a rapid stream. The creature then furiously exclaims, quote, "I vowed eternal hatred and vengeance to all mankind," end quote, and promises a, quote, "deep and deadly revenge." And then there's a page number for that source. Because the student is only writing about one source, they have already quoted this source once. So Mary Shelley has already been listed. So you typically will cite the source with the last name of the author and the page number. So the first instance should be Shelley, then 101. No comma, no P period, just Shelley 101 in parentheses like that. After that, especially if you're only writing about one author, you can just put the page number. If you don't have page numbers, however, it is good to cite the last name of the author every time you quote. A few things about quoting the source. When you are quoting from an original source, you cannot change anything about the original quote. So this quote, "I vowed eternal hatred and vengeance to all mankind," that comes directly from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and nothing has been changed. If you change anything, you can no longer quote it because you will be misrepresenting the original text. That goes for all sources, not just fiction, not just literature, all sources. You can no longer put quotation marks around something if you are misrepresenting the original source. But the best way to provide evidence from a source, especially in literature, is to use direct quotes. Because instead of saying, the creature promised to take vengeance, that is not as powerful as quoting the creature when he says, "I vowed eternal hatred and vengeance to all mankind." That's way more powerful than summarizing or paraphrasing what the creature was trying to say there. And most of the time, a quote is way more powerful and way more direct and directly supportive of what you're trying to claim than a paraphrase section or a summary of what happened. That's not always the case, but most often, especially in literature, the words that were chosen by the author were chosen for a reason. So you want to quote the author. You want to give the author the representation that they deserve and demonstrate that successfully in your paragraph. Another good example comes in the next paragraph. It says, "In contrast to the central theme of revenge, the creature displays a capability of forgiveness during his request for a female creature to be made by Victor, who will serve him as a companion. The creature exclaims to Victor that, 'You must create a female for me with whom I can live in the interchange of those symphonies necessary for my being.'" Well, that's a really poetic line from the creature. And a lot of misconceptions about Frankenstein's monster from this story is that he is not well read, that he is not well educated, and that he cannot speak well, right? So this quote not only directly provides evidence for what the student is claiming in this essay, but it also kind of disproves some of the misconceptions about the story. This line's really poetic. The symphonies necessary for my being is a very poetic way to talk about living, right? And living in a partnership. And so what better way to represent that than with a quote from the story? So that is just an example, but every time you make a claim about the story, anytime you make a claim about themes or character or setting, you really need to follow that up with a piece of evidence. Even if that evidence isn't quoted, if it's just an example or a summary, there has to be a piece of evidence that supports your claim. Because remember, at the heart of everything that we're doing here, we are writing argumentative essays, right, with argumentative thesis statements. And those thesis statements we're trying to prove with the essay. So we need to be persuasive and we need to have evidence to prove to our reader that we are correct in our argument. Okay, I think that is all I wanted to say. If there is anything else that I'm missing with the notes that I have from the fiction essays, I will add them to an announcement when I post this video. But if you have any questions related to the feedback that I gave you on your fiction unit essay, please let me know. I'd be happy to go over it with you. And if you have any questions about how to view any of that feedback, please let me know. You know where to find me. I'll see y'all later. Bye.